Welcome back, everybody. If you're joining right now, this is the perfect time. We are here at Riftlab's Trial 2. We're about to enter the quarterfinals. My name is Anu, and I'm joined by Silent Knight and Jibs. We have some pretty crazy games that are about to happen here. Some of the best players who have fought tooth and nail to get to this spot. Let's take a look at the bracket to see what is going on in our top cut. So starting from the top to the bottom, we have Prismaticism, 5-0 into double draw, playing Kaisa. Presto, who we've seen playing twice 5-1-1 on Ari. We have the Kaisa Mirror, Randy versus Lusco Luna. Sold Out and Game Slayer 989, who we both saw battle yesterday. This is a grudge match. And then finally, Squip on SETT versus WasianSwag on Kaisa. Our feature match this round is going to be Sold Out versus Game Slayer 989. We'll see who is going to win. We saw Annie completely sweep Volley yesterday. Talk to me a little bit about this bracket, the two of you. How are you feeling about this this meta? Do you think anything should be here that isn't?
I think we're missing a Master Yi. Where's he gone?
Oh my god, you're right.
Anyone seen Master Yi anywhere? I don't know what's happening. Yeah, we're missing Master Yi. Crazy not to see him in the top 8. Happy not to see one of the top decks. Unfortunately, we do see quite a lot of Kaiser there, but they are pretty much all on one side of the bracket bar one. So hopefully we won't be seeing a Kaiser mirror in the grand finals. What do you think, Silent?
Well, one thing that I'm curious about with this is that what Presto was especially able to do against a Kaisa, and with him on the bracket right now, well, he's going against Prismaticism, which is a very tried and true player as well, so he is going to be a very tough matchup, but Presto has done extremely well against Kaisa so far, and that is all he is going to be seeing until the finals. So I'm going to be curious, is Ari going to be able to make it into the finals of this Trials? I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. The one thing that I see here is that this time, you know, we have 5 unique legends going into this top 8. The narrative coming out of China is now changed. We have Kaisa back, you know, maybe I would say like this is a regional difference, or there are other factors that can attribute it towards. But Kaisa's back. The good news is that there's a lot of tech and decks that are geared to beat it. So for example, Ari has a good Kaisa matchup. We have Volibear with a good Kaisa matchup. SETT with a good Kaisa matchup. Annie is the one outlier here, but I'm excited because I know Soul is very talented. Another look here at our metagame really quickly, with Kaisa being the most played deck, also makes sense that it is the deck that has the most representation in the top 8. Anything here from the metagame before we go into our first deck list?
Another one I actually wanted to shout out is a lack of Darius as well. We thought that the West would be playing a lot more Darius Cleave, Darius Hook, not Cleave, which we would think would have at least made the top 8 here. I think a lot of the Darius players were struggling to make that top cut. We had players like Batsu dropping out, unfortunately losing their games in Kaiser matchups. So yeah, I think this is a pretty decent spread of players across the board. Really interesting to see so many Teemo players as well. Bloody hate that guy in League of Legends, but in this card game he does have just as many tricks. So it's cool to see numerous Teemo decks here, and it's especially cool to see a SETT in the top 8.
Yeah, one thing I want to bring up with us. Oh. Go for it.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're going to dive into the prizes right before we get into our first deck list. So let's take a quick reminder as to what players are battling for now that we are here with full stakes. So you can see prizing goes out to 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place, with custom 1-of-1 playmats going out to our winner and our finalist. The Codex journals, which I have been drooling over all weekend. And then also, this is kind of cool. I actually really like this. The swag borders that you get for Piltover Archives. So just letting everybody know that, you know, you crushed the Riftlab Trials 2. Followed by finally going to all top 4 competitors, a digital edition copy of Codex of the Arcane. So really cool prizes here, and I want to say a massive thank you to Codex Journals, Piltover Archive, and Jacob over at Riftlabs for putting this event together with fantastic prizing like this. Great community effort. Love to see it happen. Let's take a look at the first deck list.
Yeah, and it's looking like we might be doing a little bit of a change here. We're going to be going into SETT versus Kaisa. So, of course, the first deck list in this case is going to be SETT. A very tried and true champion, has a lot to offer, especially in the way of insurance. I'm going to be going into the battlefield, but if I happen to be buffed I have then the insurance to go back and be like, cool, well, if you attack in, I'll use that buff, I'll recycle a rune and go back to base. And that can be so difficult to have to go against, especially for Kai'Sa, who is going to be on the flip side of this as well.
Yeah, it's going to be quite an interesting match. SETT does have numerous ways to buff these units. He's got a really important card in his deck to help this Kai'Sa matchup with the Qiyana and those Unyielding Spirits in his side deck. Those are going to be really important. Unfortunately, they're not in his main deck, but he does have numerous other ways of playing this matchup. He's pulled some interesting tech here with the Shen. I don't think the Shen's going to help massively in this matchup against those spells, but a Darius running into a unit like a Qiyana and a Shen suddenly teleporting and appearing, providing that tank status and effectively a 5 might unit could come in clutch here. Really interested to see how Squip plays this matchup out. I like to initially think it is Kai'Sa favored, but there is some interesting choices here to help him get over the line. Maybe bringing out the Fiora in the side deck as well to give double deflect once it's buffed. Should give him enough urgency to get to that mid-range that he's looking for and keep control of those boards and stopping the Kai'Sa snowballing with its tempo.
Speaking of Kai'Sa, let's take a look at the Kai'Sa deck list here and see what WasianSwag has brought to the table to battle against SETT. Any notable outliers or any interesting tech choices that might swing this matchup one way or the other?
Yeah, and this one, I just really like the diversity of it. You have a lot of answers that you need. We've been notating this throughout the tournament, of course, if there's can be a lot of 2 options here. Darius is going to be a very big outlier. That piece you need to get over the might that, SETT might be able to offer, spinning a buff, adding +4 might. That's tough to deal with, but if Darius can find his cleave, get up to 10 might, that is so difficult to come over. Likewise as well, Dr. Mundo can get incredibly big, incredibly fast, and that can be something that not only can take battlefields, but also maintain a stronghold when going against SETT.
Yeah, and with the amount of spare spells he has, he can really utilize those to help with any specific matchups. This one specifically, he's definitely going to be wanting to pull that smoke screen. Smoke screen is going to be a key card in this matchup. Really difficult for SETT to get around the -4. Predominantly, a lot of his units are going to be around that 5 to 8 might mark. So that smoke screen will allow the Kai'Sa to push into those units sitting on those battlefields a lot easier. And in combination with those Dariuses, unfortunately he doesn't have the third one. But with those 2, if he manages to draw 1 or 2 of them, should be able to help. But he can't be relying on these spells with those deflect costs if he does draw the Qiyana's. Now, interesting enough, in the sideboard, we do see a second Mundo. I'd like to see that being pulled in for the Zorn Warren's battlefield specifically. Once one of those does get put down on a battlefield, could be hidden bladed. So I'd be curious to know whether he does stick with the Dr. Mundos or just play into the hidden blades and accept that it's the only way for the SETT player to deal with them.
Yeah, one thing I want to point out real quick here as well is Reaver's Row is going to be an interesting play for the Kai'Sa player as well, because what this is going to mean is that SETT, if he is holding Reaver's Row, will not have to spend one of his buffs and recycle a rune in this case to back into base, and that can also potentially be very detrimental to the Kai'Sa player, so time will tell.
Yep. All right, we're about to get into the match pretty shortly, but before we do so, I want to get a pulse check here from both of you two, right? SETT versus Kai'Sa, how do you feel like this matchup is going to play out? Do you have your money on WasianSwag with the Kai'Sa list or Squip on SETT?
I'm going to go with the SETT. I think the SETT has enough ways and means to play this game out. And I'm not saying he has the upper hand. I would say this matchup sometimes comes 50-50. Certainly a skill matchup. But I think the SETT could come out on top here. Or at least he's the one that's got my vote.
And I really will agree with you on that as well, especially just with the battlefields, the potential for removal and things like that. If SETT can hit the ground running and start getting the buffs out onto their units to really utilize what SETT is meant to do, it is going to just be a wall that this Kai'Sa player is going to have to overcome. So again, like we said, time will tell, but I am excited to see what these matches are going to be offering us.
Absolutely. And as the matches are loading up, I'm going to keep asking you some more questions here. So let's dive down, right? If Kaisa somehow is the underdog in this matchup, what are the key cards in the opening hand that we're looking for to give her the best chance of winning game one?
I think they're going to want to get those Void Seekers down and get value out of them as quick as possible. Especially if the set has utilized all his runes, doesn't have a way of buffing any units. If you manage to kill a unit with a Void Seeker that isn't buffed, that you know that you're going to get full value out of it and draw a card, that's going to be a massive bonus. However, if the Void Seeker is hitting a buff unit and your opponent can either, has the potential to call to glory or just bring that unit back alive, or even if it's a deflect, then it's not going to have any value at all. So it's going to be really coming down to how and when the Kaiser player utilizes its spells. Of course, if the set does decide to make a risky play and put down things like 2 pit rookies in the back for it only to get falling starred, that's going to really push the set back. So you're going to have a lot of preemptive play coming from both players to make sure they're getting maximum value out of their cards.
Battlefields are Monastery of Harana and Targon's Peak. Looks like WasianSwag will be going first. Does that impact the flow of this match, Silent Knight?
I won't necessarily think that it would impact the flow necessarily. Again, going first luckily doesn't have as big of an impact on the game as what we would see in other card games potentially. But even still, being able to even get those first few points, especially when SETT doesn't necessarily have the spell removal that what you see in like Kaisa or even like Annie being able to bounce things around and all that jazz, that can be a little bit of an advantage to get those first few points in game one to really make that impact and ultimately get to that 8 points needed to win the game.
We'll check it out. No turn one play here from WasianSwag. We're going to see Cithria enter the base for Squip. Following it up turn 2. What do you have, WasianSwag? Got to play something this turn for sure.
Yeah, that's a bit unfortunate. I'm guessing we don't see the cards. Oh, I think they're loading. Okay, there we go. Oof. Okay, that is a tough opening draw. It mostly is reactionary, which is what Kaiser can do here. It's not the end of the world. He does have a Hexray and a Void Seeker in hand, including the Smoke Screen and a Stupefy. So it gives him the options of killing units from range, so he doesn't need to push in. Does slow down the game perhaps, which goes into the Kaiser's plan anyway. Set wanting to get its points ahead, getting everything buffed, which he's done so. He is tapped out though, so he has to be careful just running into battlefields now.
Yep, Cithria is going to enter the Monastery of Harana, score the first point of the game here, and we'll see whether or not we choose to consume a buff to draw an extra card. Looks like we do, and we're picking up a copy of Kiana.
Huge
Yeah,
pickup
pretty
there.
big player.
Yeah, that Kiana is going to be really helpful in this matchup. He decides not to push the set in. Doesn't have any ways of buffing it. He thinks that, you know what, I'm just going to take the point. We'll slow down this game. Get a few cards in my hand. Once I get this Kiana online, everything's buffed up. I can then look at potentially utilizing the Sabotage to get rid of things like that Smoke Screen, which we see on screen right now, which allows him to push in and hold later on. So, Squip taking this slow. Happy with the point. See if that works in his favor now.
Yeah, one thing that's really interesting too is this is when we're seeing like how big of an impact battlefields can have in these kinds of matchups too. You're seeing the Monastery here. That is not going to be benefiting the Kaisa whatsoever in this matchup. You cannot, buff anything on Kaisa's side at least, in order to be able to utilize that battlefield. And so that is something that also could even tilt the scales in SETT's favor in this case on getting just that little bit more advantage to get ahead ultimately.
Yep, so Kaisa's going to best Cithria in combat here, draw a card thanks to her Conquer ability. Now we've got a couple decisions to make here, looking at a hand of Darius, Void Seeker, Hextech Ray, Stupefy, Smokescreen. We have Cleave, Lecturing Yordle, and a copy of Falling Star. So a lot of options available here for WasianSwag. What is going through your head? What do you think is going through WasianSwag's head in terms of how to handle the set brawler that's on the other side of the board?
So he's got an out here. You can actually take out the set straight away. It's going to cost him a lot though. He could Stupefy and Falling Star the set. Oh no, sorry, ignore me. He would have to Smokescreen and Falling Star the set, which he decides isn't worth it right now. The reason why that works, even through the buff bringing the unit back, is it's the same turn. Smokescreen's effect of -4 carries over. So it would mean that the set would effectively die the first time, come back alive, and then die again the second falling star. He decides not to make that play though, and it looks like SETT is going in with 8 might. He's not actually pressed the buttons, but he burnt the buff. Goes to 8 might. Did the pit rookie give him the buff
Well,
after?
and here, yeah, so yeah, I believe so. They played the pit rookie in order to up the buffs. You can spend as many buffs as you have on SETT, and so in this case, I believe it is going to be 12 versus 6 in this case. One of the best played have. I mean, SETT can get so big so fast, and the smoke screen is going to be coming out in this case, minusing 4 of that, but still, that is going to be 6 to 12 or 6 to 8 in this case still.
Yeah, I'm guessing he's going to use a Hex Ray now to kind of trade here, but I think that's a little bit too many cards for little value if he's at 12, because yeah, the SETT player had the runes up for the call to glory. I think that's a very big push for Squip. He's taken 2 very important cards. Hex Ray for some damage, and most importantly, the smoke screen getting 0 value here is really important for that SETT player. He needs to run through those smoke screens. There's the second one. That's gonna hurt unless the SETT player manages to sabotage it. It is the biggest thing for this Kaiser player to have in his hand. Will he decide to use it here and falling star the SETT? We will see in a moment whether he does decide to make that play.
Well, walk me through a couple of the options this turn, Silent Knight. What does Wasian have available?
Well, the biggest thing that I think you're definitely right on the falling star. You're going to be causing your opponent. I mean, no, not necessarily. You could also do the Void Seeker as well in this case, just to deal the 4 damage, force the sacrificing of the recycling of the rune to get it back into play, and then heck, you could even falling star after that potentially to really just get rid of a really big threat on the board. I really think that this set that is here can be such a devastating blow. And of course, he does have another one in hand. But I mean, the fact of how quickly you can buff up those units, I almost just would fixate on that and want to get rid of this set sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the correct play here is to Void Seeker, followed by the Stupefy, because the SETT is actually at 5 might, although it doesn't show it on the screen. So we'll have to use the Stupefy, which will carry over. Will allow him to draw a card. He's doing the sequencing here where he does the Void Seeker, Stupefies on the chain. So he's actually getting a lot of value here with drawing 2 cards and forcing his opponent to bring the SETT back. I believe the Stupefy will still be in effect here, so he should be at 3 might. So the Falling Star should be killing both of them here. Pretty sure that is the case.
Yep,
I think
I
that's
agree with
what
you.
His opponent is telling him now. He still has his Stupefy on. Should be slamming down the Falling Star. It's a lot of cards being used this turn, but I think that is the correct sequence of plays because he's effectively been drawing cards from the Void Seeker and the Stupefy. So yeah, that's what he goes with. Kills both units, clears the board. Doesn't bother building up his own board right now. Is content with clearing the board. There's the second set though. What will the SETT player do now on his turn?
Oh, not just the second one, the third one as well.
It's the third one, yeah.
Well, and I want to go back to the point of exactly how that play played out there, because the SETT legend ability is very important on how it is worded. It says, if a buffed unit you control would die, you may pay the buff, exhaust me, and spend its buff to heal it, exhaust it, and recall it instead. Send it to base. This isn't a move. And so because of that, yeah, your Stupefy would still be in effect, and that is a big play right there to get rid of some very big threats.
All right, well, first mate is going to ready the Kiana, going to enter into Targon's Peak, score another point here. Point lead heavily in favor of Squip 3-1, and Kiana's ability to channel or draw is now going to proc. It's going to pick up a copy of Pit Rookie. Pretty solid turn here, all things considered, from Squip.
Yeah, I'm not sure if using the Kiana here was the correct option, though. He doesn't have a buff on it. I know it has Deflect. You want this Kiana to get maximum value. And right now, it just feels like it's going to get potentially Void Seekered, which unfortunately we see that WasianSwag has just drawn into. yes, WasianSwag will have to recycle one, use the Kaiser ability to avoid one of those. There's no real way of buffing this Kiana. I think it probably would have been best just playing something else in his backfield. Okay, he's just ready 2 runes from Targon's Peak, perhaps to make his opponent think he has an answer here. Which unfortunately I don't think he does from the cards in hand. So yeah, perhaps a bit wasteful from the Kiana moving in there, but I felt like Squip perhaps thought he just needs to get some units down on the board as quick as possible and start moving ahead. There's the Void Seeker.
Yeah.
Takes out the Kiana, which is great value for the Kaiser player. Not having to worry about the Kiana coming back alive is pretty strong.
Well, and here's the thing too, and I agree with you on the misplay here a little bit, more so that I see that my opponent has 6 going on 7 cards in hand. I have Sabotage. I can go ahead and look at your hand, know exactly what you have, and not only that, be able to also get rid of a card, a big threat that I think I have, and that can be so much knowledge on how to even move forward in the coming turns. And right now, it's like, I don't know that you have 2 Dariuses in hand with a cleave and even another smokescreen. So what am I going to be getting into? And even more so with this, set player is playing blind, and that could also cause a lot of mistakes to go his way.
Yeah. And I think another thing alongside that, Silent, is the loss of perhaps unnecessary tempo. He's gone from 2 to 3 points. Now we all know that curve is not really impactful in this game. Doesn't need to be at 3 points in comparison to 2. His opponent had no units on board, so pushing that unit last turn may hurt him in the long run. Does manage to get his set on board now with a buff. Readies him with the ready mate, goes into the battlefield, the monastery, and will he burn the buff here to draw a card? No, he decides not to.
No, he'll burn the buff because on Conquer you get the buff.
Correct, yeah.
Yep,
so you get
it's
to
a really
choose
good card.
Yeah.
All right, Kaisa's going to come into the Targon's Peak here. Draw a card off its ability. We're going to remember to untap 2 runes at the end of our turn. The question is how we are going to handle this set brawler here.
Slam down that Darius. He's gonna, looks like he's thinking about what to play with the Darius to engage. Okay, he's gonna go with a Falling Star, clear out that backfield, enable the Darius, get it to 7, readying it. Should be able to walk straight in here with no worries. The opponent doesn't have any ready runes. And a Call to Glory won't save the set because he'll only go to 7 and trade. So good play from the Kaiser player there, managing to take both battlefields. We'll have 2 untapped runes ready to be utilized in his opponent's turn, which means he's effectively saying, I have something in my hand here that you need to run into, whether it's a Void Seeker, Smokescreen, or even a Hex-Ray, or a bit of the both. You have to think about this.
Okay, wait, I'm doing a double take here. Is that 2 copies of Soaring Scout in the hand here for Squip? That is different for sure.
Yeah, it looks like he likes the value of channeling that rune. It's a pretty fair 2 cost in a unit where he wants to get those runes to be utilized for the set ability to bring his units back. It's like he's buffing up his set to maximum here. Eco Monk coming down for a double buff. And I think Set's going to be running straight into his opponent in a moment. Oh, we actually see how much he's getting buffed. Straight to 12 might. Super strong. He's going to do a straight jump into one of these battlefields. Which one is he going to go for? I think, personally, he should be going to the Monastery to draw a card and conquer, but what's he going to think about?
Yeah, well, and I don't think if he goes into Monastery that he would be able to draw a card because he would be generating the buff at the time that the trigger would be going off for Monastery in this case. I might be wrong about that, though.
I think Monastery lets you consume other buffs, so you're consuming the buff on the Pit Rookie there, right?
That's true.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be his. Doesn't have to be his, yeah. So that's a really, really good play there.
Dang.
Gets a lot of value out of the Monk, which gives out the 2 buffs. 1 gets burnt. decide to keep it. I think he should be burning it here because he doesn't have the best of hands for the next turn.
I think this is where it gets kind of incredible, right? Looking at the power of SETT Brawler in this matchup, in order to make this trade functional here for Wasian, you need to not only smokescreen the set down to 8 might, but then also commit a Hextech Ray. That's 3 cards just for the single set. And I mean, if I'm in Squip's seat, that looks like a great exchange.
Yeah, that would be a very good exchange as well. And even on top of that, 2 runes remain as well. And again, that Sabotage still sits in hand, and Cleave is targetable as an option for Sabotage. So could even get rid of more cards on top of that when all is said and done.
Yeah, I'm still unsure as to why the Sabotage is in hand. He could have thrown that down, stopped the smoke screen completely coming down, and not having to worry about this becoming a trade. The issue he has is, of course, the second card readies Darius and makes him 7 might, so this will pretty much be guaranteed a trade. As there are, of course, no buffs in Squip's hand. I think if he wants to be making this play, he wants to be making sure he's getting full value, so there is a trade going on here. Yep.
Oh, and the Darius can also get pumped up for playing 2 or more cards in a turn as well, even on your opponent's turn. That is such a good thing. And that could be something that you on accident forget. In this case, it doesn't matter, but it could down the line if something like that happens and you realize, oh, the Darius actually has 2 more and could even survive at that point.
Yeah.
Thousand Tail Watchers to pick up here for WasianSwag. Honestly, with the way this game has been playing out, I'm actually shocked. I feel like the Kaisa deck is putting up much more of a fight than I originally expected.
Yeah, he seems to be getting all the sort of mid-range cards that he needed during those exchanges, which feels quite punishing for Squip, not utilizing that Sabotage to get rid of one of those smoke screens so he could at least have a set on board with a buff that could be utilized again. But now we see the Shen coming down a little bit too late here. It could come in helpful in the next turn here. Wondering if Squip is thinking about using this set to come into play.
Oh, there's a Sabotage.
Okay, there's the Sabotage. Yeah, a little bit late. Gets rid of the Cleave, which does help. Stops that Darius getting to the 10 might. Would have been way helpful the previous turn.
And it's like, especially now, knowing the Darius, knowing the Thousand Tail Watcher is in the hand of your opponent, it's like, okay, how am I going to treat this turn now? We're getting now 4-4, and even after, if Squip decides to go and capture both battlefields in this case, it's like, okay, knowing what my opponent has and what is going to be happening next, how am I going to now go about this? And to where I can still keep advantage. It's going to be 6-4, but that can flip to where it's going to be 6-6 in the following turn.
Yeah, Pit Rookie is going to enter the monastery, trade its buff to draw an extra card. That's a second copy of Shen Kinko, and I mean, honestly, I'm trying to see how these Shens are going to play into the game here. We have a total of 8 energy this turn, so we could play SETT Brawler and Shen. What is the best way to use Shen in this board state? Do either of you two have a thought on that?
Yeah, I think what Squip would want to do right now that he's seen both of those Shens, is, yeah, correct. He's going to play all his units at the back there. He's then going to probably hold them out to cause an issue, at least one of them this turn. I think he accidentally recycled those runes instead of reading there. Yeah, he's brought them back. Yeah, so he's got 3 up for this turn, which is going to make his opponent think he has a Call to Glory. Is he going to think about the Shen? The Shen coming down, providing a tank with effectively 5 might because of the shield 2 keyword. It's going to really play into, depending on how WasianSwag pushes these units into these boards. Now, could just forget it and just play this Falling Star that he's decided to top draw now. But maybe maybe WasianSwag might decide to play into these battlefields with his units and utilize the Falling Star to kill some of those units in the backboard. I was gonna say, does SETT have a buff? It looks like he does. So he won't really be getting any value killing him. So these Shens could actually come into play here. I think he wants to use them defensively. as I don't believe you can use them when assaulting a battlefield. You can only use them whilst holding. So one of them's going to get some value here, and it could be that he decides to hold the second one to hold a battlefield to get him to 8 points next turn.
Well, that's going to be the thing. I think in this case, I would want to almost go ahead and target the Shin to be used wherever the Kaisa is going. The last thing I want is for my opponent to go ahead and get a card draw if they happen to conquer a battlefield. And so if I can go ahead and play the Shin and he can survive here in this exchange, cool. I will take out the Kaisa to stop you from being able to add another card in hand.
There's the Shin getting slammed down.
Yep, Kaisa coming into the Targon's peak. Shen saying, no, this bird stays alive, and this is kind of a massive blowout here, because Kaisa was not expecting to go down this way.
Yeah, I think he was... Yeah, you are. You shall not pass, good sir. I think he decided that he would make a play into a potential call to glory, but I don't think he was calculating a Shen being slammed down like that, which definitely hurts WasianSwag's push now, having only one accelerated unit in his hand if he decides to hold on to the Darius and the Falling Star. I don't think he's going to get any value out of the Watcher here, so his options pretty limited if he wants to conquer both battlefields and hold them. I think he's going to be in a pretty tough spot now. He's not got the draw from the Kaiser, so that was a really good play from Squip.
All right, Falling Star now going to get played here by WasianSwag. What are our targets? Doesn't really feel like we have very many good options.
Yeah, that's the hard part. I feel like, though, you at least know that your opponent is tapped out. Yeah, and so going after Kinko, very interesting idea there as well. But still, I mean, if you have to take something out, you know, might as well worry about it. They are able to get the battlefield of Monastery, but and then here comes the Darius being the second card activated to go in for 7 on the other battlefield, clearing both in this case. But is that going to be enough to stop Squip from taking both on the following turn?
He's going to have to deal with a SETT Brawler, which is going to be going up to 8 might next turn. He does ready his runes, but as we can see, he doesn't have any action or reaction cards in his hand. So he's going to have to hope that this Hopeful and Palti Poro on the left and the Darius on the right can hold out against the push. Ooh, there's the Kinku Monk, which can now buff SETT again, putting him to 12 might, potentially pushing in. So he does have the answers to both battlefields. I don't think there's a way, however, for the SETT player to push both battlefields here. So I think what Squip wants to do is potentially push one and hold it with the Shen.
If you had to pick a battlefield to go for, would you try to conquer Darius at the Targon's Peak, or try to draw a card over the Noxus Hopeful and the Pouty Poro in the Monastery of Harana?
Oh, I think I would have to try to go for the card draw in this case. It's like, yeah, well, and here's the hard part, though, too, because Darius can then, if you don't take out the Darius can go back to base at the start of the turn. You play 2 cards. Darius readies, gets +2 might, and can go ahead and help take both battlefields in this case. So it's tempting, because at first I thought, yes, let's go ahead and go for the card. But now I'm thinking, actually, that would be the wrong play in this case. And you have to go for the Darius, because after that, 2 cards played, and it's over at that point.
Oof. He does go for the Monastery, which is the correct play, but I mean, he's running into 3 runes that could have hurt him badly if WasianSwag did have an answer there. He's decided to take the risk, burn the buff, conquer the battlefield. He'll then get another buff. Now he needs to decide whether he's going to hold on to these battlefields or decide, you know what, I go up to 7. I'll try and push for the 8 next turn. It looks like he's going to decide for the latter. He knows that he probably won't be able to hold on. Yeah, the Thousand Tail Watcher coming down is going to be able to deal with this set pretty handily. WasianSwag goes to 7 points now. The Shen, I don't believe, makes a difference here. The Shen comes in at 5 might. SETT will be at 2. It would be a trade.
Well, that's kind of interesting because I'm trying to figure out if we had just stacked everything in the Monastery of Harada, like if we move the bird, if we play the Kinko Monk in the Monastery and the Glory Seeker, if we just have everything in there and reserve the right to play Shen, is there a way we could lose?
Yeah, that's just it.
From what we could see, no. But I'm wondering if Squip decided that was a risky play. Here comes the Watcher. It's the only play that WasianSwag will have. And I think at this point, we're going to see the trade. Because the Shen is going to come in, provide the 5 might, along with the 2 that the SETT has. And that's an equal trade. SETT will come back alive. And then it's down to Squip to push that Darius, which I believe he will have enough might for.
Yeah, most notably here, the trigger from the Thousand Tail Watcher is only when it enters play. Shen is not yet on the board because it comes in at reaction speed, so Shen kind of just dancing circles around probably one of the strongest abilities from the Kaisa deck, in that -3 might Fox might modulation. And this kind of puts Squip in a very good position to take the game down on this final turn. Oh, wow, and a Pit Rookie 2 off the top.
Yeah, that's going to be a big deal, too. Opponents tapped out, and you just drew exactly what you needed to really get that extra insurance to secure this match. One has gone back and forth.
Yeah, really cool plays by this set. Kept it cool throughout, using that double Shen really to maximize all his value there. He gets the draws here, gets 2 draws in fact, because he's at 7 points. Can't win the game conquering that battlefield, so instead draws a card. See that SETT go up to its high might value of 8, slamming down the Kiku Monk to give it another buff, so it goes to 12, just to do a giant Shoryuken into Darius's chin and take game 1. It's 1-0 to the SETT.
Yeah, you can see Wasian just picks up the cards. It's like, nope, I'm good. I'm done. I'm out. Yeah. SETT Brawler is very big here. Let's take a look at sideboarding here. Let's start with the Kaisa side. Any cards that you find particularly interesting, Silent Knight, for Kaisa coming into the SETT matchup?
I mean, again, we're going to be saying you got to do everything you can to try to get over the battlefield. If you can also get SETT to sacrifice and recycle too many runes, you can almost like have him shoot himself in the foot with that, because he won't be able to play anything additionally. So with that, let's do some smoke screen. Let's get some cleave in there. I don't know if Dr. Mundo might necessarily be a great option in this case, but especially a Cathian Rain might be something I peek my eye at, just because it can target anything. Doesn't have to be in a battlefield, which means you can destroy the backline as soon as you cause it to cool the base.
Yep. Yeah, no, 100% I agree with that. There's going to be some interesting tech from the SETT player on their sideboard. I'd be really interested to see whether the SETT brings these Fioras in. I know for a fact they'll be bringing those Unyielding Spirits in to stop those rains causing absolute havoc in the SETT's backfield. Probably throw in some sabotages and hopefully use those a bit earlier this time. But yeah, I think the Kaiser will probably want to utilize this Time Warp. I think Time Warp is a brilliant card. We've already seen some amazing Time Warp plays earlier from Presto and his Ari deck. I think Kaiser should be utilizing this as well, trying to gain an upper advantage, gain those points early, and score out with the Time Warp at the end, which will really catch the SETT player off guard if he doesn't play around it. Yeah, I think outside of that, he's going to bring the smoke screen in to help push those units to a low might and allow him to push into those battlefields a bit easier.
Yeah, I do have another question, which is, now that we've seen and evaluated both players' sideboards, who do you expect to have more improvements to their main deck going from game 1 into game 2?
I'm going to vote SETT.
I feel like... Yeah, exactly. I feel like SETT is specifically cited for either Kaisa or the Auroras, or... I mean, you can use Salvage for even the SETT, but I mean, 6 of the cards in the side deck just go so well into Kaisa.
Yeah. The Unyielding Spirit, I would have liked to seen 3 of them. They're so good. But you know what? We'll take 2. You only need to have 1 in your hand at some point in the game to really cause a huge impact, stopping that range, stopping the potentially double falling star from ruining plans. It's going to be a big game swinger if he draws it at the right time.
All right, so players are going to finish signing up soon. I guess one thing that we will take a look at real quick is the prizing once more, just to see if... quick reminder of what's on the line here. So to get into the top 4, that's going to secure your digital edition copy of the Codex. And after that, working our way up the graphic here, top 3 will get the unique icons on Piltover Archive. I'm wondering, maybe we should talk to the Piltover Archive team and see if, like, production or casters can get some sweet ornaments like that, because, I don't know, they just look kind of nice to have, you know what I mean?
Definitely deserve them, right?
Yeah, speaking of nice to have, I also want to give a shout out to Codex Journals for those amazing notepads that they've got there. I will, one way or another, show up to the Houston Regional with a Codex Journal. They are just that sweet. And also shout out to the one-of-one playmats here, going out to first and second. Love to see that, that beautiful black and gold chroma. Yeah, it looks so good, yeah. I like the little champion icon over the helmet too, the little bit of a shout out there. Good attention to detail. Very well done, Jacob. Can we take a look at the other one? I don't know. Is that also something that we can look at? Yes, we can! Black and white. Oh, looks crisp and clean too. And the thing that I like the most about this playmat is if you look at the way the battlefields are set up, they're like 2 pieces of a puzzle. You just line them up with each other, and then you have premium game real estate. So very well thought out. Really, really enjoyed these prizes.
Yeah, and we've got the little minions in the front playing there, the cards. It's so cool. I think they're caster minions, right, from League of Legends? That's so awesome. But here we are, straight into the next game. What we're going to see here, we're going to see... Okay, we've got Reaver's Row and... Ooh, the ganking battlefield. I can't remember the name of that one.
Windswept Hillock, yeah. So that's going to be very interesting to see how it's going to change the texture of the game. But we're locked and loaded. We're already into game number 2. Pouty Poro on turn 1 from WasianSwag is going to be met by the lone pit rookie from Squip. Look at the hands here. Anything shout out as remarkable?
I gotta say, Call to Glory is one of the sports that can really surprise your opponent. Adding that +3 might, especially when spending a buff instead of having to spend your runes, can be such a big difference maker. And just like there, what we see as well, Unyielding Spirit is crucial here as well. Still, though, having Darius with Cleave in hand, that can be incredibly scary to have to deal with.
Whoa, now this is big commits. We're going to conquer the Windswept Hillock here with the pit rookie, and then play set Brawler on turn 2 in the Hillock, vulnerable to a lot of stuff here. But we still have the set passive to expend the buff to keep it alive.
Yeah, correct, Anu. I think that he's decided that, you know what, I've got the buff. I'm going to put 7 might down, which is pretty hard to run into, and still burn it if I believe you have no other way of killing him, and put a Call to Glory on. Pretty interesting that he's decided to slam this all down without having one rune up, just to potentially play the Unyielding Spirit. But he's decided to go all out. Could come in play here, and as we see on WasianSwag's side, has a lot of sort of mid to end game plays here. Wondering if any of that will come down. He does have the Darius Cleave, as you stated. Throwing down 10 might, he should easily be able to conquer that battlefield. But I'm wondering if he decides to do that now. Him being 1 point up, could take the game a little bit slower. Not decide to push just yet. Maybe just see what else his opponent plays first. But we also see opposite, the Kiana was just drawn. So that's going to come into play next turn. Playing that straight into a battlefield, it's pretty strong for the set player. So I think the correct play would be to take over that battlefield, but instead it looks like WasianSwag's going to take it slow, put down the second Kaiser, and I believe he is passed. I'm not too sure. Yep, he has.
Whoa, okay, Leona is the pickup this turn. And that's a card that I didn't see in the sideboard, which means it's in the main deck. And that's what's our reason to play Leona in the main deck?
I think the biggest thing is in case there's something big in this case, trying to get over like maybe a Thousand Tail Watch or trying to get over a Dr. Mundo and whatnot, I can go ahead then and stun whatever is, or, you know, one unit that is in the battlefield and just say, sorry, but your damage does not apply. And that can be something, especially in the end game, that can help get you to that 8th point, whereas otherwise you would not be able to take that battlefield.
Yep. I can see Leona coming into play in quite a lot of the meta at the moment. If you were playing against a Yi deck or any sort of Aurora deck with big units, the effect of stunning does come up in combination with SETT providing the might value. Here we can see now the WasianSwag will look providing huge value there. SETT conquering across to the Reaver's Row. The Reaver's Row is going to be super strong for that SETT. Does mean that he could just run away if he feels like he can't deal with what's being pushed into him. And it looks like Squip is thinking, you know what, I'm just going to sit at the back here, place my Kiana down, place a Pit Rookie. Here we go. That's what we wanted to see last game. Buff the Kiana. Now that Kiana is really difficult because now it's not just one spell that can kill her. It's going to cost potentially 2, which will drain a lot of runes for the Kaiser player to deal with in the future.
Well, and again, I want to go back to maybe how important it is on the battlefield selection in this case. You saw how big of an impact Monastery had for SETT in this case, and now we might see likewise what we kind of predicted in the pregame. Reaver's Row could have the same kind of effect on the SETT player as well, to where it gives him just that little bit more advantage, stopping him from having to recycle something in this case to get some advantage. And so it's going to be interesting to see how WasianSwag plays around this and tries to utilize this battlefield that he chose to his advantage.
Oh, I love this. All right, Kaisa's entering combat in the Reaver's Row. First thing that happens, when I attack, when I defend, that triggers on the stack, and Wasian is saying, well, what are you going to do with this Reaver's Row? If you're in Squip's side, what does this mean to you, and how do you react?
I think he's gonna want to see what his opponent pushes in first, which he has done. He's decided, you know what, I'm gonna push back. The only thing that can hit me back here is a Falling Star. It does open up the rain play here, but I don't think that would really get as much value as WasianSwag would want. So I think Squip's thought, you know what, I'm not going to leave a rune open for the Unyielding Spirit just yet. I'm going to save that for later. Utilize the Reaver's Row, push back with quite a lot of these units with fairly high might, and it's going to prove difficult for WasianSwag to hold on here. It does go up to 4 power, score of 4 now, but Squip pushing back in will put him into the driver's seat ahead at 5 and 4. We'll see how Squip decides to do this now. What does he draw?
Looks like a copy of Trifarian Glory Seeker, as Darius is the final play for WasianSwag. And I gotta say, one thing that I've noticed about Wasian is really just showing good patience in deploying units into base over the course of time, not just slamming things into the battlefield, but also really just giving an opportunity and window to push into combat with more units, like a wider army of units. And that's pretty cool. I like the strategy that goes into that.
Yeah, you're totally right, Anu. I think that is the correct way to play this, is keep the trades to a minimum. Keep the Kaiser in the Reaver's Row, so you're drawing the card, keeping it alive, knowing your opponent doesn't play offensive spells. That Kaiser's going to get a lot of value from, you know, even if it draws 1, 2 cards is amazing, but you want at least 1 out of that Kaiser. Giving you that sort of tempo of having all these options in your hand, which has now given him a Stupefy and even the Retreat, which will allow him to channel a rune, so that next turn he can play the Watcher and potentially cleave the Darius, which will enable him, which is huge. Going from 8 to 9, or in this case next turn he'll go from 10 to 11. We'll give him plenty of options there, so be keen to see how WasianSwag goes. But he has the tempo here. He is ahead by a point. He's at even, so he just needs to keep pushing back and forth, and he'll have plenty of options with that, with the 2 Watchers in hand. So we'll have to see how Squip manages to push through that.
Yeah, one thing I'm thinking about here as well that could be very beneficial. I know he's moving in people, but one thing that I was thinking is like, I almost want to move the set into the Reavers, or into Reavers Row in this case, and then also use the first mate to ready it up and be able to move into the other battlefield as well. But it looks like we are going to be extending everything on to the Reavers Row in this case and seeing, hey, now do you want to pull out, or do you want to maybe try to use, those spells that you had in your hand previously that you kind of threatened me with moving the Kaisa in last round.
A fascinating question here that Squip is asking, right? What is the reason to toss these pit rookies aside? Do you know?
Sorry, what do you mean? Toss them aside.
Offering a trade here, the 2 pit rookies for the Kaisa, that sort of signals something. It signals that maybe we just don't want to have to deal with this Kaisa. And then immediately by offering that trade, I'm going to guess that Wasian says, well, if you're offering it, I'm not taking it. I'm going to pull my Kaisa back. So now we have 3 units on Reavers Road, which is very unconventional as far as things normally go.
I guess he was looking at his opponent, seeing the 3 cards, 3 runes up, and thinking, okay, maybe I don't want to play into a smoke screen and just trade the Kiana, even if it's got deflect. It's not going to get me any value, and then I'm going to just basically trade 2 pit rookies, and I would probably have to use more cards that I don't want to. I'll just push it all in. I've got the Call to Glory if I need to. I've got the Unyielding Spirit if I really need to use that. Take it fully over. I can still use Reaver's Row here to pull the Kiana back, but I still have 4 might, potentially more with the Call to Glory being utilized. He's got a buff in his base, so he doesn't need to use it on the bigger units. So really trying to hold on to at least one of these battlefields, putting him up to that 6 score, and putting him back into the driver's seat.
All right, here we go. We've got a non-accelerated 1,000 Tail Watcher. That's going to reduce the might on the entire board here from Swift's side. And we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4 might now in Reaver's Row, with 2 might in the Windswept Hillock. We're going to retreat, set back, keep it alive. Yes, no, maybe.
Just really adding the cleave for that extra insurance. Now that still will ready it up, add +2, and it gives a unit an assault +3 this turn. And that battlefield has ganking in this case, so he's going to be able to gank over with 10 with cleave and just really try to clear out a lot of battlefields. Now, of course, because of the battlefields and SETT's ability, that is going to be moving 2 units back into base to be used the next turn. But man, that is a great way to use 2 cards to really clear the battlefield.
Yeah, and the way this is set up too, you finally land your Darius in Reaver's Row. I think this is a really, really well played sequence here for Wasian. One thing that I'm noting though is, Squip had the option to play Trifarian Glory Seeker. We've not really talked about this, but Unyielding Spirit has been in the hand since maybe turn like 1, 2, or 3, very early in the game. Same with the Falling Star. So it's really interesting to see how this dance is being danced with, the damage dealing spell and then the counter for that damage dealing spell. And I'm trying to see who's gonna buckle first, right? Will we actually see like Wasian end up playing the Falling Star, or just assume that there's something like a spirit in hand? It's hard to say.
Yeah, I think if Wasian does believe, most set decks do play the Unyielding Spirit in its side deck, maybe he's decided, you know what, I'm not going to get much value out of this, there's no point risking it. I'd rather spend my time going wide, getting all these units into the battlefields. Here we have Leona pushing it in. Okay, the Darius decides to, you know what, I can't win this, I'll just move back, I'll save my might for next turn. As I said earlier, Wasian being on the even points means that he could just double conquer next turn. He knows he has the 1,000 Tail Watcher in his hand, so it doesn't matter what his opponent plays, they're all going to be debuffed. I've got plenty of units here. I should have no problem countering anything that my opponent does. However, we do see on Squip's side, he does have the Shen. So that doesn't, as stated before last game, it doesn't get affected by the Watcher. Depending on how WasianSwag puts his units into these battlefields next turn, that Shen could be clutch. And there's a Call to Glory as well. That's 2 Call to Glories. Does he have all his runes up? Wow, that could be pretty big.
Well, and that's the thing too. Not be using 3 runes. That you just go ahead and spin a buff, and if that buff is kind of already being taken down a notch by instead, and then even having Shin on top of that can be very scary to have to deal with. And it looks like he is just going to fully reinforce these battlefields to give himself the best chance of getting that final point, saying, hey, WasianSwag, you need to be able to take both, and if you can't, then it looks like I'm going to have this game.
But notably, though, we didn't accelerate Watcher the last turn, so it is still in base. We still have access to Darius and double Kaisa, and a second copy of Thousand Tail Watcher in the hand with another top deck Darius. So I feel like there are a lot of options here for Wasian, but it looks like we're windmill slamming the Fox.
Boom.
And that should be
and
enough.
Now
to
here's
maybe
where the
secure
map
this game.
comes in.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. Is he going to run his units one by one and try and like bait out some of the spells, or is he going to think, you know what, I've got enough might here, it doesn't matter what you put down? I think he's deciding, you know what, I will play around what you have in your hand. Let's play one Kaiser and see what you do. This is the correct way, I think, of playing. So WasianSwag taking his time, utilizing all these units that he's built up over time. There comes the Shen. 5 might. That is a straight up defense there. Swag's gonna have to use something in his hand as a reaction or an action to overcome this. He does have a... No, he doesn't have a cleave. Okay, interesting. He does have a stupefy though. That will...
Yeah.
No, he's not going to use it. He accepts the trade.
Interesting. And that's going to be the interesting part, though, because that's 5 might, and Shin has tank. And it's like, I want to get rid of that Shin because that tank is going to mean that the rest of my units are completely protected here.
And you love to see it. So, I mean, I think I understand letting the Kaisa die there, just given that you don't want to... Maybe like Darius's ability is something you're thinking about. But this is what I was talking about first, right? Who's going to fold here? Who's going to buckle? And it looks like we've committed the Shen to the table, tapping out. And that's the go signal for Falling Star.
No way. That is rough. Okay, so the Shen actually got buffed from a Call to Glory utilizing someone else's shield. And now the Shen completely deflected that Falling Star. But it looks like the Kai... I think he still might... Yeah, he still got this. Too much might there. There's 21 might getting moved in. And they call the game, I think. Yep, that's it. GG. WasianSwag takes game 2. Looks like we're going to game 3.
Very awesome showing here from WasianSwag's Kaisa. That last game, a lot of unorthodox plays, like putting the unaccelerated Fox into the board. That sort of just panned out. Really cool things with Darius, Cleave, leveraging the Windswept Hillock. Let's talk about sideboards one more time here. Is there anything that we want to revise going into this final game for either player?
Well, we saw how long they spent trying to sideboard. This is a very tricky scenario on really making that choice. And it's like, if I see this card in this moment as I sided in, how excited would I be about that? Am I willing to maybe try to go for a time warp, trying to get maybe that extra turn? I don't think so in this case, just because of how expensive it is. But it's like... I think he probably will be keeping the same cards in hand.
Yeah, I think you're right, Silent. The only question I have is if he... I don't recall the third battlefield WasianSwag has, but if he has the Zorn Warrens, where you're discarding and drawing, that would be... Okay, so he does have the Zorn Warrens. So that specific battlefield is really good for Dr. Mundo. You're constantly discarding and drawing every time you conquer. Buffs up innately the Dr. Mundo. So perhaps you might be thinking, you know what, now I'm playing Zorn Warrens. Maybe I want to try and hold the battlefield, which even a set with 2 buffs might not be able to push into. So he might put this second Mundo in and go, you know what, I'm going to take out something like a Falling Star, put the second Mundo in, try and draw into it mid-game, slam that down onto a battlefield and hold on to it for dear life. Could be the play whilst zapping his opponent on the other side with Void Seekers, Falling Stars, and he could always push into him with other units. So I think that would be what I would be looking at to really abuse that battlefield.
Yeah, and looking into the set side of things here, how do we feel? I don't know if we actually got to see any copies of Fiora, but I have to imagine they were brought in. We did see Unyielding Spirit. I don't believe we saw Sabotage in that second game, so I wonder if we've actually brought in the second and third copies, or if we're just relying on the rest of our main deck to carry us along the way.
Yeah, that's a good point there too, and that's definitely something to wonder about. And I want to go back a little bit too with the crucial moment last game with Reaver's Row, where you saw Kaisa go ahead and move in and almost try to bluff out the set player, when in reality he didn't necessarily have the best answers to try to overcome it in this way, and the set player backed out. That was a point secured, and I think that might have been a big difference maker in securing to just that tiny little bit of a difference of a play, and deciding there made a huge impact all in all.
Yep. All right, going into the final game, we have Zon Warrens from the side of WasianSwag, and Squip has brought Grove of the Godwillow. Squip will be going first this game, might be able to leverage an early lead thanks to the Grove. Looking at a hand of Cithria, First Mate, Kinko Monk, and Hidden Blade. Are any of these cards worth going back to the bottom of the deck?
I think if you assume your opponent is going to play the Mundo in this matchup, which, as we haven't seen Hidden Blades, maybe the Kaiser player might decide to go with the Mundo. Of course, as I said before the game started, that he might go, you know what, I'm never going to get value out of this Mundo because of the Hidden Blade. Maybe I'm not going to bother. It's kind of a bluff each end. The only value that the Hidden Blade is going to get is later on in the game when you're holding a battlefield trying to get to 7 or 8 points, or killing off these 1 or 2 might units to draw some cards. So I think it's the correct here to hold on to it. You don't know if your opponent is playing a Mundo or whatnot in their deck right now, or they've taken out. You have to hold on to it just in case.
Alright, so it looks like we're going to follow up Cithria with another copy of Cithria and the Trifarian Glory Seeker. Glory Seeker going to be coming in with a buff thanks to Legion proc, and it's going to move into the Grove of the Godwillow. So looks like Squip is quite intent on keeping control of this battlefield. Do we hide the Hidden Blade, or are we good with what we have?
I think because he's playing into a Falling Star here with only 2 to 3 might units, the Hidden Blade could have got some value here. He could protect one with bringing it back alive with Set's ability, and then kill the other one and draw 2 cards from it. But I think he decides, you know what, I'm going to save this for later, potentially use it offensively. And if I play into spells, I play into spells. So it looks like Kaiser player is just going to go, you know what, I'm going to yeet straight into that and blow up one of... Oh no, he's going to go with the Cleave, bring him to 4 might. And potentially stupefy another to trade. I think that's what he's going to decide to do here.
Getting word just in, by the way, that Sold Out has won 2-1 against Gameslayer 989's Volley Bear. So unfortunately, Volley not able to get vengeance from in the grudge match. But that does mean that whoever wins this match will be facing off against Annie in the semifinals. Something to think about as we continue watching this game. In the meantime, looks like not 1 but 2 Cleaves are coming in to pump up this Watchful Sentry, and that is going to secure the point and the Grove of the Godwillows here for WasianSwag.
Oof, and there comes down the Falling Star, which I mentioned earlier is going to completely clear the board. Has used up pretty much all of his cards, but you know what? That's worth it. You need to get a hold of that Godwillow board, battlefield, sorry. It's really important. Whoever has hold of that battlefield will be getting a lot of value here. It looks like the set doesn't have any ways of stopping WasianSwag keeping this battlefield, and now he's going to draw 2 cards at the start of his turn instead of 1. Looks like he's drawn just 1 card so far, I believe. There you go, there's the second one. Plenty of options now. He could put down the student and then the hopeful, sit with 2 cards up and hold onto that battlefield. Or he could play the Kaiser. He goes for the Kaiser, goes for the hopeful and says, you know what, I don't care about holding this battlefield. You can have it. I've got value out of it. I'm going to set up ready for next turn.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. You've already drawn 1 card for holding there. On top of that, when your unit in there dies, it is going to be going ahead and drawing a card, but he is going to be pulling it back in this case. I mean, he's already got the momentum, and I really, again, going back to exactly what Anu said of being very patient with your play here. You know, he very well could have gone ahead and played the 5 to be able to have the Kaisa at the ready, take the other battlefield, and go up a point. But instead, now he's like, all right, cool. I'm going to take this time, build up to 9 might, and see what you do on your turn to then decide how I'm going to react to your field at that point.
Yeah, you've got that pretty spot on there, Silent. I think this is the correct way of playing for the Kaiser. You're at the 2 points. Let's start building up. Let's push next turn. I go to 8 runes. Got plenty of options potentially with the draw. I can draw another for the Kaiser from the Kaiser because I know my opponent doesn't have any accelerated units to really put me under pressure. I'm in the driving seat here. The tempo is with me. Let's keep that tempo going. We do see the Unyielding Spirit come into hand there on Squip's side. Fortunately, a turn too late, but it'll still, I'm sure, see some value later on. He's got his 1 rune up to protect his sets if need be from any falling stars or rain or whatnot. So doesn't look like there is anything too scary in Wasian's hand in terms of that, but there's still a lot of units to be played.
Well, and that's the thing we've had in previous games where at this point already, WasianSwag had 1, even 2, you know, Watchful Sentry or Thousand Tail Watchers, sorry, in hand at this point. And it's like he has the 4 cards in hand, but right now he doesn't necessarily have those mid to late game answers needing to get over how big and dangerous these set cards are. And is that going to be something that maybe really starts to make an impact here? Not being able to find those draws needed so that you can not only take the battlefields, but continue to hold them.
All right, here comes Stupefy. Yep, bringing SETT Brawler down from 4 to 3 with the buff, goes up to 4 still.
Yeah, and he played 2 Stupefies to be able to get it down to 3. So, I mean, he at least is able to draw the cards off of that, but that's going to be a big difference here.
Goes straight in with the Kaiser, decides to conquer Godwillow with the Kaiser, gets the draw. See what he draws into. The Time Warp, there it is. That's what we were talking about before. He has pulled in the Time Warp from his side deck, decided, you know what, I want to just play this slow, which he has done. Keep my runes, nothing crazy, and see what I draw into and play around that. So he's drawn into the Time Warp. That is his win con this game. And play to 6 points, slam down that Time Warp, and effectively win the game. He's just discarded and drawn here into a retreat, which will keep his Kaiser alive. It will also channel a rune exhausted, so it will allow him to hold on to ramp up towards that Time Warp, which he's kept 1 rune up for. So really good sequence of play there by WasianSwag. He knows his win con. Just play it slow, keep scoring points, place his units down, and push later on ready for that Time Warp play.
All right, A, B, C, D. Looks like we're going into this next turn having drawn Kiana. 1 SETT Brawler with a buff, 1 without. And 6 runes available to Squip. Silent, how do you feel about this turn? If you were playing from Squip's POV, what would you look to sequence?
Yeah, because that's a big thing. Right now, he has no idea what is in his opponent's hand. He's seeing 4 cards, and it's like, what am I going to be able to do to get around this? My opponent has 1 rune that could be potentially a Hextech Ray or a retreat in this case. So if I go in 8 to 7 potentially with dealing the 3 damage in this case, I'm going to be okay. The retreat has come out. Cool. Now I know that my opponent is tapped out. I'm in the clear, so now I can play this turn the way I want. First mate can very well come in and take both battlefields again and go up 4 to 4.
Yeah, I think Squip is now going to be thinking about what he needs to do with his plays this turn to help him next turn. You could see his opponent doesn't have too much on the battlefield in terms of might, just 2 2s and a 4. But of course, there's 4 cards in hand and a lot of runes ready for next turn. So will he decide to do to slam down a Kiana in one battlefield and potentially a Hidden Blade in the other? Just to help, or maybe he'll keep the Hidden Blade in hand to play around a watch, a Fox, which could come in later on. But looks like he's going to play the Kiana in base for now. He's not going to stack up. There's no need. He's saying, you know what, I'm at 4. You're at 4. Let's play this. Let's keep this slow. Oh, there's quite a lot of buffs there. No, they're gone.
And then one thing here, we have seen the Hidden Blade, and so Anu, I want to kind of throw this to you. You've been throwing us a lot of questions. I'm throwing you one. Would this be a point where you would maybe want to think considering down the Blade as a hidden card?
I think Anu's not sure about that one. I think
Well,
I'll answer that on. I think I'll answer that on his behalf. Maybe he's hidden himself instead of the blade. So I think I would personally, if I have no other plays in hand, which he does, then I would probably play it face down to hold on to this God Willow. Will it get much value? I mean, the issue is you kind of want one of these sets alive to, you know, utilize that bring back ability from the legend. But at the same time, he does have an unyielding spirit in his hand that he might also want to use against, as I said earlier, Rain or a Falling Star and things like that. So I personally would be placing that down, hidden on one battlefield, and keeping the runes up to use that unyielding spirit just to stop any spells this turn. Here comes the Watcher, slams that down, knocks both sets down to 2 power. Oh wait, he's not accelerated the Watcher as he did last game as well. So he's going to take things slow. Again, I'm at 4. Let's get to 6. Let's keep as many units as I can in base and play next turn. If I get to 6 here, all I need is to push 1 unit in, play that Time Warp. I know my win con. My opponent needs to play around this.
Apologies for that. My mic was muted. Oops. Yeah, but it's kind of interesting here to see, the Fox come into play again, exhausted. Is this a play pattern that you think is a winning recipe for this matchup?
Yeah, I think WasianSwag is correctly identifying his win con. He just needs to get to the 6. He doesn't need to hold. He needs to have some units in his base. He doesn't need to push the Watcher, so he's saving his runes for later because he's going to be using 10 on this Time Warp. Might also want something else like the smoke screen as well, so that'll be 12 utilized next turn. So the Watcher could basically walk in against pretty much anything, and then the Time Warp gets slammed down, and that is GG. So let's hopefully see this student walk into Zorns, maybe get rid of either the Kaiser or the Darius, because we're not going to see that next turn, and draw into something potentially more useful like a cleave or something that he could utilize. So there goes the Kaiser. Let's see what he... Okay, there you go. There's the cleave that I was on about.
Hello? We're not on that page of the script yet, buddy. Hold up. One page back.
I mean, his Time Warp is just in my mind, right? Yeah, so I'm just rewinding now, and yeah, I think we can see the sequence of play that's going to come from WasianSwag. It's just a case of whether Squip has any answers here. The Shen comes into hand. That will certainly help a push next turn. So we're going to have to see Squip really holding on to both battlefields, or at least one, to stop this push. Okay, here comes the Kinku Monk. Buffs both units. It should be an easy take here. Just whether this Shen makes a big difference at holding. You can only hold one side. See what Wasian decides to do here.
Yeah, tough turn here. I mean, it sounds like we're complicating the board again here with the Kinko Monk, which was going to put a couple layers of protection here on Squip's side of the board. Something that Wasian's going to have to find a way to fight through. As it stands right now, the Grove and the Zon Warrens are both relatively unsafe for Kaisa, so the question is once SETT commits to these battlefields, what is our plan to get back in and secure the final point? Other thing to consider here too is, this Hidden Blade has been in the hand here the whole time, and you asked earlier about what to do with it. I think it just stays where it is. I feel like it's too much of a commitment to actually put it on a battlefield, especially because, ironically enough, Hidden Blade, when hidden at a battlefield in most decks, is mostly just like face-up blade. You know what I mean? Like it's very easy to know and play around. So
there comes the smoke screen. That does mean it will be a trade. Fortunately, there is no counter apart from the Hidden Blade, really. Which you don't want to be using because you're going to be wanting to use that next turn. And Squip identifies that and says, you know what, I'll take that trade, that's fine. Then push the Kiana. And then I will push... Oh, wait, no, he can only conquer 1 here, so it'll only go to 5. So that does mean that the Watcher... Well, it's going to run face first into the Hidden Blade either way. Unless Squip plays anything else here. Discards the Shen, accepts that he's not going to get any value out of it. It's going to draw into, we see a Pit Rookie. Okay, that could be useful next turn. Squip's going to have to use this Hidden Blade against the Watcher to stop that Time Warp play. So there's the Watcher being used, and boom, it goes with the Hidden Blade. No Time Warp this turn, good sir.
And that's a really interesting idea, too. It's like, my opponent hasn't used any runes in this case. And so he has all of this access, and I've just given him 2 more cards. And with that, he's drawn another Thousand Tail Watcher, which is a very interesting idea here because it's like, okay, cool. My opponent now is, at going to be at 6 points unless I'm able to stop this here. If I go the Thousand Tail Watcher, I'm in trouble. If I use the Falling Star in this case... everything will just kind of go back to base in this case. It's just such a difficult situation to find yourself in. You have 6 cards in hand, but it's like all of them are kind of like not necessarily pulling you towards the win that you're wanting to.
tricky situation here. I wonder if we try to just rinse and repeat the board set that we had earlier. Do we play another Fox in the base and pass the turn? Do we accelerate an attack to go up to 7? That is a lot of options here coming to the close of this game.
Yeah, I think what we probably want to be doing is the Watcher isn't getting too much value. You know your opponent is tapped out. They can call to glory the Kiana only up to 7. So you're probably going to just want to throw that Darius Cleave down, kill the Kiana, take the Zorn, see if you can maybe redraw either the Hex into something else useful next turn. And then save the Watcher for next turn to be able to push it. Or he might... Okay, he's actually going to go with the Falling Star, kill the backfield, and then probably ready the Darius through that way. He doesn't want to do the cleave route. That's perfectly reasonable. And then potentially try and go for the end next turn with the Watcher. Maybe a bit more slow unless he keeps a unit back, which he doesn't have. So perhaps the Darius conquering the Zorns could draw into something like a 2-drop, which gives him something to be able to just waddle in and take that Time Warp play.
Yeah, just very tricky here.
Also kind of interesting. I wonder, what if you just move Darius into the Grove? Do you even try to contest the Kiana here?
Could do that.
I almost...
Not sure
I almost think that's more the correct route in this case, just mainly because you're going to be okay. Go ahead and try to take it now. Even in this game as well, we haven't necessarily seen First Mate really utilized too much. You know that in his deck to be used, that could be a pretty big difference maker in this case as well. But otherwise, it's like, yeah, I almost would want to go into the Willow in this case as the Kaisa player.
So I personally think he would want to kill the Kiana here and get rid of that buff. The reason why I say that is if your opponent draws a unit and a showstopper. The showstopper is, you know, if it's a set, he can buff him up, use the other buff to buff him up, and then get, you know, the showstopper gives him another buff. But yeah, another part of me is like, do I want this Kiana just to be moved back, conquer, readied, move back? It's yeah, it's a tough sequence of plays that you really need to be thinking ahead.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, especially as if I was in the Kai'Sa's player shoes. We're in, you know, game number 3 now, so if I haven't seen it, I'm almost doubting that it might even be in the deck, and that might be something to weigh for me going towards taking the Willow instead.
Looks like the Kai'Sa player decides to not take either, and he's past the turn, I believe. So interesting. He's gone, you know what? I'm going to try stick with my plan, go for Time Warp next turn. I need a big unit in my base. Darius is one of those units that could potentially take over any battlefield, but then he does leave himself open to counter plays. Darius does, I mean, could potentially go up to 10 might with the cleave and hex play. So perhaps that's what he's thinking. He's thinking, you don't have a way of holding both of these. I'm going to walk into one, use this hex ray, use this cleave, take that over, and then because they only cost 1 each, always have the 10 spare and utilize the time warp. I believe he has enough runes. No, he's only got 9, so he can only use 1 of those. So he can't ready the Darius. This is interesting.
Yeah, tricky situation here too, because from the set perspective as well, you want to your time warp, we know, is on Squip's radar, right? From the aggressive hidden play on the Watcher a couple turns ago. So with the cards you have in your hand and the board set you have right now, what is the best way to play around something like that? Maybe deploy first mate to Zon Warrens and then ready the Kiana?
Oh, now who's on time warp? Someone's seen it. Yeah, it looks like that's what he's going to be doing. He's got the first mate play, moving the Kiana into the other side. I think, however, this means that what WasianSwag will end up doing is forgetting the time warp and going, you know what, I'll just use this Watcher. He's got a couple of units. I'm going to reduce them all, play another card, ready that Darius, get him to 7 might, maybe 10 with a cleave, and that is probably all she wrote. Let's see if that's what he decides to do.
So it all comes down to this. WasianSwag needing to do some math here real quick. If I go ahead and play these cards in this sequence, just like what you had stated, is that going to be enough for me to win this? And I mean, again, we've had 20-minute game, 16-minute game, now 25-minute game from game 1. That is, I mean, a lot of thinking here, especially as semifinals for 2 days. This final moment on who's going to make it into the semifinals.
Yeah, so from Wasian's side, let's just do some process of elimination here, right? You don't need to worry about Hidden Blade this turn. You only need to worry about 1 Call to Glory. Is there any other spell that we would need to play around here besides that? Because if it's just 1 Call to Glory that we need to play around, we have the cards and tools in our hand to easily disassemble that.
Yeah, I think this is WasianSwag's game to lose at this point. Only facing one rune up. That's probably only going to be a unyielding spirit from his point of view, and as you stated, could get a free Call to Glory, but it's not going to make a difference when playing into a Watcher. Here comes the... Oh, wait, what's... Oh, he's going Time Warp.
Okay, that's interesting. That's a fun one.
Interesting. And then going right in. So he is going to get an extra turn after that. So he is going to maybe be trying to go ahead and take a battlefield and then using his next turn to then play Thousand Tail Watcher and get an additional card to maybe even see what he can do after that.
Yeah, no.
Well, this is just threatening lethal, right? Because if we conquer, we go up to 7, we ready, and then we hold for the win.
Mm-hmm.
So he's at 5. Call to Glory doesn't make a difference here. Yeah, no, that's GG. I guess that's the other way of doing it. You either do the Watcher play, or he's decided, you know what, I've got this time warp, I'm gonna play it. I'll get the Darius to 10. Even with a Call to Glory, you can't defend this. That's GG.
Yeah, really well played. And in a shocking twist of fate here, looks like Kai'Sa's actually going to come out ahead here against SETT. Kind of like the underdog in a weird way, rearing its ugly head and winning once again, showing why Kai'Sa's, contender for best deck in the format. Time Warp also a card that I did not expect to see be boarded in this matchup. And holy moly, holy buffs. That is a lot of buffs. That is so many buffs. Goodness. I think that's like at least 20 buffs. I like it. Dude, just spawn the buff instead of bringing the ones back over, just to keep a trophy count. But let's take a look at our top 4 matchups here. So, Prismaticism versus Presto. That was actually a matchup that we were all looking forward to. Ahri against Kai'Sa, and it looks like finally Ahri has been put down. Kai'Sa comes out ahead in that matchup, which is, I wouldn't be shocked to see that happen at the hands of Prismaticism, arguably one of the best players in the game right now. On the other side, sold out, the lonesome Annie, who has dodged Kai'Sa up until this point, has no choice but to beat Kai'Sa twice in order to secure the tournament. How are we feeling about this this top 4 bracket?
Super excited to see the Annie holding out against all competition. Fortunately, now finding its way against a Kai'Sa. That's going to be a big uphill battle for the Annie deck, but I'm super keen to see how that goes. We do on the other side see the Kai'Sa matchup being linked up again, which we see these types of games going on throughout tournaments throughout our time. So yeah, I'd be super keen to see an Annie versus Kai'Sa final, but let's be honest here, we're probably going to see a Kai'Sa off, aren't we?
Silent, any thoughts on top 4?
Yeah, I just gotta say, it really could be anyone do so far at least. And I gotta say, I am so impressed that Sold Out has been able to pilot Annie so well to be able to even make it into the semifinals. It's been a deck that we almost count out a little bit more than maybe we should at this point, where we think it's almost even a tier 3 deck, as some people are saying around the interwebs. And so I'm so into it, and I'm curious on how it's going to go, and I'm thinking, yeah, maybe it's going to be a really tough matchup going into the Kai'Sa.
All right, well, I have 4 words for everybody, and that's Annie. We're going to cut to a quick break here. We'll be back with our top 4 at Riftlab Trials 2. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.